honestly, it's like a river flowing, and I'm just following the flow. And I'm not saying that I'm flowing in the right direction. I'm just listening to the flow because I feel like when you write from the heart, that will produce the best books. And so no matter what the topic or the genre, if you're writing from a place of complete passion and surrender, or even a place of pain, that will transfer to the writing and hopefully help somebody else.
Welcome to You May Contribute a Verse. I'm Brenna Jennerette, rock climber, mom, and kidlit author of The Law of Birthdays, illustrated by Marina Condra. I'm joined by my co-host Josh Munkin, dad, kidlit author, and science communicator. This episode is proudly sponsored by Canadian children's book publisher Tealmore Press, where every book sold supports reforestation. Check out Tealmore's newest release, When the Sea Left, written by Nadine Holland and illustrated by Krista McGinley. The book explores what would happen if so much trash ends up in the sea it disappears. Check out this title and all the titles at tealmorepress.com, including titles like Naked, Fungi Are More Than Mushrooms, and Supermoon. Today's guest is Lydia Lukidis. You don't want to miss this episode. Lydia is a brilliant, established author who shares lots of wisdom about timing, the state of the market, surrendering to the work, and her journey through 3 agents and selling 50-plus picture books over her career. Make sure you look for Lydia's newest release, the super clever and really fun graphic novel, Groucho the Grouchy Groundhog. Here's Lydia's first marketing group that we were in, but the new year just switched over and I don't have a 2025 book, but Lydia is so prolific and so brilliant. She has books like all the time. So
well, let's not get too excited. I had to work my way up to where I am now. This like book number 50, and only now am I getting some form of notoriety. And even now, it is a tough business. Like I have 2 books, middle grade books on sub right now, and it's crickets. No one's even reading them. So it is a tough business.
Oh my gosh, Lydia, I have so many questions, but what I was going to say is like that, I mean, it gives me a little bit of like relief or like solace, because I'm just like, okay, well, even people who are really established and are agented by one of the top agencies, like still like crickets, like things. I was talking to my critique group last night, and we were all saying the same thing. Like everyone keeps saying, oh, next year will be the year of the debut author, next year will be the year of the debut author, you know what I mean? But like it feels like everyone, like across the board, editors are just like kind of terrified to take on a new voice, and they're just like, oh, I don't know, like I really like this, but maybe later, like they just are like afraid to take that chance. I don't know, but
I would love to talk about that, like fire questions about that in the interview, and I'll give you my perspective. Not that I know really anything, but I know a lot through Miranda because she kind of keeps the pulse on the industry, and it's a tough industry and things keep shifting. Like she said last year, I just couldn't sell a middle grade. Like she hardly sold any middle grade. So I'm like, wait a minute, but aren't kids reading middle grade? So where's the discrepancy,
Yes.
I don't get it.
Yes.
Also, by the way, Lydia, we're in the interview now. We're not just chatting. Soft launch.
No. Yeah, we like to press record early just so we get, all of the goods, all the gems at the beginning. We can always
letting me know.
Yeah. Well, okay, I mean, on that note, yeah, what are your thoughts on that? What is your perspective? Because I don't know. I feel like picture books across the board, like I haven't heard anything in months on like anything that I have on sub. And we're getting ready to do another round, and I'm just like, okay, but like, will we hear anything? I don't know.
I think COVID had a big role to play. And then we all thought, oh, okay, once COVID's over, things will go back to normal. But they haven't quite gone back to normal. There's still, overseas delays and people getting their release dates shifting, not just by months, sometimes by years. I had a friend,
Yes.
Her release date got shifted 2 years. So it is a reality that we all have to deal with. I don't have the magical answer. All I know is that my agent, Miranda Paul, taught me something that's really a valuable kind of skill to have in your brain at all moments. And that is, it is all about timing. You might have a really great book, but if it's not the right timing for that book to hit the market, it will not sell. And sometimes you got to put it aside. You got to swallow your pride and be patient. And then, it took her like a couple of years to sell one of my books, Dancing Through Space. And she told me, Lydia, I will sell this book, but you need to stop thinking about it. I will put it aside. And now I have 2 middle grade novels, one of them which is on sub since last year, and we haven't heard anything. And she said, look, it's been a tough year for middle grade. I can't really answer why because I don't really get it. It's just that what we were running into is publishers saying we're all filled up for middle grade for the year. So they were kind of waiting for the year to shift. And it seems like this year might be easier. I don't know. We'll see. But last year they
Yeah.
weren't even open. So it's not like I was even getting passes. I wasn't even getting reads. So, so she said, again, it's a matter of timing. Don't get depressed. Picture books are easier to sell than middle grade at this time. So that's what she said.
Wow.
And even that's hard to sell.
Right. Because that is like mind boggling because picture books are so hard to just like get your foot in the door with, right? And then you feel like, oh, I got my foot in the door, I sold one, I'm good. Like I won't have, the same trouble as last time. That's not true.
No.
Every
Yeah,
single
let's start
time
the process over
is
again.
like,
right.
yes, every single time is just like this like clawing of like just kind of like trying to get in the door and like talking to everybody and like, yeah, timing. And so okay, so follow-up question. How does she know if it's the right time or not? Like you just put something out and then you get crickets and you're like, "Oh, I guess it's not the right time." Or, is there something else like some other magic that Miranda knows that like we don't know?
Yeah. The short answer is that Miranda is some kind of wizard. I mean, I know this sounds
Yeah.
ridiculous, but she somehow has this sense, I think because she studies the market anytime she's always studying Publishers Weekly, what's being sold, who's buying it, where she keeps a meticulous, I'm sure, Excel spreadsheet of all of the various editors because they're always switching and going from one publisher house to another. And she also keeps tabs on what each editor is looking for. So she's not the kind of agent who's just going to send out your book to 50 editors. It just won't happen. It'll be a small, very select group of people. And so I think in that manner, she keeps a pulse on what's going on, but it's always shifting. So she always tells me, and this is another piece of good advice for everyone, don't write on the trend. I mean, you can if you want. I'm not that type. I'm not here just to make money because of this idea that I think will sell. I want to write about what I'm actually passionate about. And I'm often completely off the trend. Sometimes I'm late to the trend. Sometimes the trend is not even there. I just write what I want. And she looks at my work and says, okay, this one's marketable. Well, this one is not as marketable. It's just what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you make the trend. Sometimes that's you, right? You're like, check it out. I'm going to start this new trend. Yeah. Okay. Well, oh my gosh, Miranda Paul, amazing. You're a wizard.
I
It's
lucked
been
out
said.
that she was my third agent, just for everyone to know that it took me many, many years to
Interesting.
get to her. I had an agent before that. The first one was kind of green. She didn't know what she was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. So that didn't work out. Second agent, I'm not going to name her, but she is phenomenal. She is selling books left, right, and center, but we just weren't the right match. So that old saying of like, it's not you, it's me. Like, you feel like you're
Yeah.
almost breaking up with a partner when you switch
Yes.
with an agent. I actually got depressed after that. I said, wow, I've been through two agents. Let me reassess. Is this the right career? Can I do this? Do I have the energy to like query again? And I didn't for 6 months. I was like, I'm not querying. That's it. And then
Yeah.
I saw that Miranda Paul moved to EMLA, and I was like, oh my God, maybe I can query her.
Wait a minute. So where was Miranda before EMLA?
Well, she wasn't agenting at all. She was just writing. So that was her first gig as an agent. And of course,
Okay.
with EMLA, you need to have an in. And my in
Yes.
was that I saw Erin Murphy speak at a conference here in Montreal. I was lucky enough. And actually, I won I won the session to pitch her my idea. Oh my God, you guys. So I sat down in front of her. I was so nervous. I looked her in the eye and I started pitching my idea and I forgot the title of my book. We look back on it and kind of laugh now. I felt like such a dolt. Like I'm sitting here talking to Erin Murphy and I'm like, Gaga, I don't know the name of my book. What's my name? I probably don't even know my name.
You're like, where am I? Somebody please help me.
So we go back on it and laugh. And she didn't take me on as a client, but she said, you might be a good fit for Miranda. And so then I contacted Miranda, and then she was like sort of interested. And then the pandemic happened. And she was like, I'm not taking on anything. See you in like a year kind of thing. Like she had to
Yeah.
reboot herself. And then later I made it through somehow. I feel like I just made it through. I was like a maybe, and now we're like a really good match. But it took three agents and it took many, many years.
That again, just I mean, thank you for sharing. Like that makes me, it gives people a little bit of like, oh, okay, it's not just me, or it's not
No.
just, like, yeah, sometimes it takes a few tries to get it right, and you just don't know. Like, I have a couple of critique partners, same thing, they've stopped writing for a bit because they're just
Yeah,
like,
I know.
life, and then, they left their agent, and they just are
Yeah,
like, I don't have it in me to query again. Like,
yeah.
it's just so like emotionally taxing, and you need to be in the right spot to do it. Yeah.
The central question for me, with you, Lydia, having as many books out in the world as you do, is it refreshing, or is it disconcerting that it doesn't get any easier?
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
maybe it's somewhere in the middle?
it's interesting because, you'd think that I would have figured out how to write a picture book by now. And here's the short answer. It's like it is possible. I just wrote what I think is a good book. Of course, sometimes we think it's amazing, and then the next day we read it and we're like, what was I thinking? So it's to be determined whether or not this book is amazing, but I wrote it in a month, which never happens. It usually takes me years and years even to craft a picture book. So sometimes in those magical moments, it gets easier. And then sometimes it's still really difficult. I have 5 books that are currently shelved, can't figure them out. I can't figure out the right structure, which is a really big issue with nonfiction, like finding the right structure. I just cannot figure it out. And I've sent it to Miranda, and we've worked on it. And we're like, okay, we're just going to put this aside. It's not working. And so I've just learned to accept what works and what doesn't work. So if something's not working, I stop railing against it and I just put it aside. And then I focus on what is working. So that's been my only savior to make me feel better, because otherwise I'd be like, I have learned nothing in the last decade.
Totally. Which, I mean, that's a really good reminder too for people to just like, you can't just have that one story.
Yeah.
Because if it's not working and you just keep like pounding away at it, like, I mean, to some degree, yeah, like you want to be able to stick with it and figure out the structure and whatever, but then you also need to know when to tap out and maybe write some other stuff, because what you're saying, like write something else, and maybe that one works immediately and you circle back around, or maybe it doesn't and you move on again. But yeah, you have to keep it moving.
Well, that's it. For me, I work on gut. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing doesn't even matter. What matters is that's how I work. And I've discussed this a lot with Miranda. She's always telling me, write what you like, and then we'll find a place for it eventually. So, and I love that about her. She lets me write what I want, because, sometimes you don't want to be pigeonholed. Like, I'm known as a STEM author. I love science. I studied science. I have a degree in pure and applied science, but I also write funny. I just wrote a graphic novel that's coming out in July. So people might be surprised at that, but she just lets me go in the direction I feel I want to go in. And I really appreciate that, because maybe not every agent is like that. So I got lucky on that front.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the graphic novel?
Well, it's actually inspired by Garfield, because I was a Garfield fan. So in grade 6, my school, West Park, started a newspaper called Pizzazz. And of course, all the kids called it pizza because they didn't know what the word pizzazz, but they're like, pizzas. I'm like, it's pizzazz, you guys. And I started
Amazing.
a comic for pizzazz. Of course, I was writing a lot of articles. I was really into writing. And I started this comic based on Garfield. And my mother looked at it and she said, man, you should write comics. And the true story, this is like when I was in grade 6, many years ago, I didn't have the confidence to do it. So I never did, until a couple of years ago, 4 years ago about, I said, I still have that idea of that character that I created in grade 6. And I saw an opening at Harper for work for hire graphic novels. And I created this character and I sent it in, and I got passed. It got a pass, but I got the most brutal feedback. I always like to hear the feedback. By the way, sometimes agents don't tell their clients. I asked Miranda, I want to see the feedback, because not because I'm a glutton for punishment, but because I want to know what's wrong with my writing so that I can fix it. I try to apply it. So when I saw the comment the editor made, it was brutal, I'm not gonna lie, but she was absolutely right. So I took that and went back to the drawing board and I recreated the character. And then I wrote my first graphic novel, and I said, Miranda, I don't know what you're going to do with this. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And she managed to sell it in under 6 months. And so I kind of can't believe this is happening. So it's a mixture of Garfield, Seinfeld, and slapstick, which are all like my life. Like, I'm obsessed with Seinfeld. I love slapstick
You're
comedy.
in the right place. We love Seinfeld on the
Absolutely.
podcast. Oh my Gosh,
I'm going to see Jerry Seinfeld actually perform this Sunday. I'm so excited. My second time seeing. So I'm a big
it's
Seinfeld fan,
amazing.
that type of humor, and so I don't know. I just feel like I'm a pretty funny person, but I can't force it. You know what I mean? So like I can't write funny on command. It's just I happen to create this funny character, and everything he does is ridiculous. So it's easy to be funny in that context.
Okay, so can we back up just a little bit to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
open call at HarperCollins? So that was an open call for a work for hire project. So okay, so
Just
I have
fascinating.
questions. Yeah, I have questions about this because I recently had a talk with an editor about a work for hire project. Yeah, and it sounds very cool. I'm gonna, I will be doing part of their work for hire. Like they have an established series, so I'm gonna write a book for
Oh, that's
that,
great.
which is
I
very
didn't know
cool.
that.
But yeah,
Did
so
I?
no, you didn't. You didn't. But so also, so, we got to chit chatting and I told her about a couple of other ideas that I had. And I was like, yeah, these seem like they might fit for what you're looking for. And I really love these stories and whatever. And so she's very interested. But my question is, so for you, like, how did you feel about like this character that you obviously care a lot about, right? And then if they had picked it up as work for hire, because the limitation for work for hire, for anyone listening who may not know, it essentially in a nutshell is that you sell it at a flat rate and you do not retain the rights and you don't usually get royalties. So on that note, my thought is sort of like, oh, yay, but then also like, oh, do I want to do this? So I guess I'm asking you this very selfish question of mine because it just came up in my life, but I'm wondering, how you feel about that and what your thoughts are on, doing work for hire in terms of a project that you love, that you wrote, and then now they are interested in, as opposed to writing on spec.
In other words, can you put aside your personal feelings for Garfeld?
Yeah, nice. Or is it worth it, I guess, right? Like, is it worth it to put a book out in the world that you love versus, holding on to those rights and hoping for like a bigger sale down the line? Because it's kind of a risk either way.
I mean, listen, that's a very personal question, so everyone will have a different answer. My answer is, now that I've been through this experience, very clear. I am so happy that it didn't sell with Harper, because that would have been the wrong way. And no disrespect to Harper. I love their work and I would love to write for them still. So I'm still open to that. But this particular character, there's a magic, something happened in creating this character, and it's mine, and I want it to be mine, and I'm happy. And I mean, I don't know if I should say this or not, but Miranda went to a big conference in Italy, the Bologna one, and she was
Yeah.
pitching her ideas for television and movie studios, and mine got traction. I'm not saying anything's going to happen here. Who, I don't even know. But the point is, if you create a character that is so important to you, hang on to it, I would say, because you never know what's going to happen. And maybe nothing's going to happen down the line. I don't know. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel happy with the way things turned out, and also just learning how to create characters well. Like that, like I said, that brutal feedback I received was really on point. Editors really know what they're talking about. So if they're passing on your work for a specific reason, try to find out what that reason is, because you can really benefit from that. And if it doesn't resonate with you, just let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great advice.
It's interesting. It never pays to go into these conversations with too much prep or too much of a preconceived notion of, who you are as Lydia from your website, and you have a degree in science and on all this other stuff, because what gets uncovered is stuff like this where, part of what you're writing is not graphic novel that's coming out. It's not a departure from who you are. It's you being true to yourself and you seeing through part of your vision. Do you, or have you, in the last 10 years, which I think is what you said is how long your writing career has been, intentionally cultivated a persona to facilitate selling more books? Or has it been a matter of relationships that you've built with editors over time? Or how do you see that? Because in the context of a graphic novel, it's something that's pretty fundamentally different format wise from a lot of other stuff that you've done.
That's a great question. No, this was not a conscious effort of branding at all. I'm not really a branding kind of person. I'm just a listen to your gut kind of person and do what you feel the call for. So when I first started out in the market, I was doing work for hire for Smart Kids Club, and they were looking for STEM. So that's what pulled me into the world of STEM. Of course, I had the degree already. So they were like, hey, you'd be perfect. You're a writer. You studied science. So I got pulled into that, and then realized how much I liked writing STEM for kids, like distilling these really complex topics in ways that showed them it excited me. And so I really feel like I learned who I am through the process of just writing. And, one would think, because I'm very, very creative, that I would be all about fiction, but I'm not really. I'm mostly about nonfiction. It just seems to pull me more. But I always listen to my internal clock. And so, for example, the book that was on sub last year was not a memoir, but based on my experiences as a teenager of being very sensitive and being picked on because of my sensitivity. And so what came out of that was like a very, very raw, emotional novel in verse, which is the one that I'm currently trying to sell. So that was a huge departure from all the science books. And this was not a conscious effort, effort at all. It just happened. It was just, I have raising a teenager, and raising her brought up stuff from my past as a teenager. It's a really complex thing, life. And I'm a single mom. So there are all these things kind of exploding in my life. And that's kind of what came out. I didn't in that moment feel like writing about science. I wrote about the pain that I felt as a teenager that I guess I'm still healing now. As I'm about to turn 50, still working on that ball of pain from when I got kicked out of the cool group in high school, and watching my daughter go through difficulties in high school. So, and her story is, of course, completely different from mine. So honestly, it's like a river flowing, and I'm just following the flow. And I'm not saying that I'm flowing in the right direction. I'm just listening to the flow, because I feel like when you write from the heart, that will produce the best books. And so no matter what the topic or the genre, if you're writing from a place of complete passion and surrender, or even a place of pain, that will transfer to the writing and hopefully help somebody else.
Yeah, I love that.
It's an interesting word choice, surrender. If you're
Yeah.
writing from a place of surrender.
Yeah.
Not to get too philosophical, but what does that mean to you? Because it vibes with me for some reason.
I can get philosophical. Like I studied philosophy in university. I'm all about existentialism and trying to figure out what is the meaning of this. And now that I'm going through the shift in my life of turning 50, I am philosophical about who I am, what kind of books I think I'm more conscious now of what I want to put out into the world than I was 10 years ago. I was just trying to get my foot in the door as a newbie, but now I think it's more pointed. It's more deliberate. Forgetting your question. What was your question again?
Surrender.
Yes, surrendering. Surrendering is not forcing and not thinking you have to do A, B, C, and just surrendering and being like, this is what do I feel called to write about right now? And not judging it and not thinking, is this going to sell? Is this marketable? I think that's the death of an idea. As soon as you start analyzing its marketability, and probably a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, because I think a lot of people will say, well, don't write an idea that's not marketable. That's dumb. I don't know. I still think you have to write from the heart, and then it's a matter of timing. It might not be marketable in that moment, but maybe it will be in 5 years.
And I love the saying too, like, no writing is ever wasted. Like no creative endeavor is ever, you're not ever walking away from it feeling like you lost something.
Yeah.
I feel like it's always like you're working on your craft and you're moving towards something, but it might not always look the same. So I like that a lot. And so a question popped into my mind. So since you're on your third agent, did you sell books with your first two agents?
No.
Like, do you have, no.
No. And it's not because I didn't sell a book with him in X amount of time that we parted ways. I understand that these things take time. It just wasn't the right fit for either one. And I knew with Miranda I would sell books, and she's selling. But as I said, my second agent is prolific. She's amazing, sells a lot of books. It's just, it has to be the right fit. And that sounds like such a cliche, but it really comes down to that. Your synergies together. It's not just like, how good of an agent are you? How many books have you sold? No, you have to sit down and have a conversation on the phone with this person to see what your energies are like together. Because if you don't vibe, it ain't going to work,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I was curious about, having ties to like other agents and other books and then moving on to Miranda, but that's not a thing, which is nice. Concern. It makes it more.
I have so many books, so many agents. Right. I don't know what to do.
Right. Too much.
I'm drowning in contracts. No. Royalty statements and things.
Yeah, I can't handle these royalty statements. Just.
Did you sell stuff on your own too?
Yeah, I did. I was just hungry for anything. My first book that ever sold was sold to Gerbil Meets Mouse Publishing, which is a tiny. I think the publisher is like half my age in Ontario. but it was a great first
Awesome.
experience. And all of her characters are gerbils, so I had to write a story about a gerbil. But you know what?
Amazing.
Pretty
Speaking of
well.
writing,
I had to write about a gerbil, and I sold another book to Blue Whale Press after that. And then when I got to be with Miranda, I learned, and this is not a knock to small publishers because we still sub to small publishers. She told me quite frankly, Lydia, the top five are great, the big or now the big four, but that's not always the way to go, depending on what your book is. Sometimes medium to small publisher might be better. You might get more attention from them. You might get more in terms of marketing. So we're open to everyone. But yeah, I think I leave that all up to her now. I've relinquished again surrender because in the beginning I was like, oh, we could do this, we could sell that, we could. And she's like, Lydia, you need to settle down. You need to focus on the writing and let me focus on the selling. And so that's been a really great shift in our relationship where I really trust her to kind of guide me because I don't know the industry like she does. So I just write, tell her what I'm working on. She says, okay, this one now, maybe the other one later, because she's not going to sub 5 books at the same time. She's got other clients. So I've learned to surrender and trust to the process again.
That is a really good, like for me specifically, maybe other people out there too, but it's a good reminder. Like I've had a really hard time sort of letting go of that control piece, only because I'm on my second agent, and there was a year in between where, you're sort of like agenting yourself for, lack of a better term. Yeah. So you're sort of like, you've got your pulse or you've got your finger on everything, querying, subbing, small publishers, like what people are doing, what they're buying, whatever. And you're very much in it. Having to pull back has been really hard for me because I'm just like, if we could just sub to what, and I have to very much be like, okay, I trust my agent. She knows the market. I have to just back off because it's, that's her job. And if I am trying to like micromanage her, that's not helpful for anybody. So yeah.
Yeah, we did have that moment because I do have control freak tendencies. Admittedly, but I am working on it. And now that I'm about to turn 50, that's something I'm looking at. Just why the need for such control and just to flow more with life. That's what it's all teaching me. I don't know. You can't separate, life from reading and writing. Like to me, it's all one. Like it all goes together. So all the lessons I'm learning as a personal human being are then translated into my writing.
Yeah. Yeah. And go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask because it's been a topic of discussion in the Discord channel recently about whether or not a sale with a small publisher then sort of like handicaps you, I guess, for lack of a better term, when subbing to the big 5 or the big 4. Like, have you found that in your experience? Like you have these sales from smaller publishers and then they're looking at your sales and being like, oh, I don't know.
Is this PB Spree?
Sorry, go ahead.
Discord?
No, the PB Workshop. Yeah. There's
shout out Nathan and team.
Yeah. That is a good question though. Because when I went to Miranda, I had 3 books out, all with small publishers, probably really minimal sales. To me, I was so happy to have gotten there, but really, and let's be real, I probably had really low sales. And you were talking about debut authors before, and I thought that publishers love debut authors because it's like new and exciting, and for someone who already had all these books out, it had a lot of work for hire and 3 trade books out, they probably might have looked at my work and been like, whoa, look how many books she's written, and she really hasn't sold that well. So I don't know how I made it through the hoop at Capstone, but I somehow made it through the hoop. But it was a concern of mine. But what can I do? That was the path I had chosen. I don't regret it. So small publishers can also bring you gifts. Like, for example, Blue Whale Press, I got to know Tara. She became my illustrator. We have a solid relationship now. She's a friend to me. And she illustrated Groucho, my new graphic novel coming out. So we subbed it together because I don't draw.
Wait. Tara Hannon.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. She's incredible. Like I've chatted to her just here and there, but I would love to have her on the show. Tara, if you're listening, hello. I'll reach out to you. But
another wizard. I'm telling you, there's something magical with that woman.
She's amazing. I love her stuff. And I actually started chatting to her on Instagram because she posted a illustration she had done of a pregnant unicorn. And I just was oh my God, this is brilliant. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, that's amazing. So wait a minute. She was at Blue Whale Press as an illustrator or?
Yeah, she illustrated my book, No Bears Allowed. And then I got to meet her. And even that small press was so like such a formidable experience because they were so great to me. I learned a lot about the industry. I got to meet Tara, and I feel like it was a stepping stone along my path. So I don't regret it at all. So I would say follow your gut. And if you feel like this press, no matter what the size, is the right one, namely that they love and understand your work. To me, that's like the most important. Do you understand what I'm trying to put out? Do you vibe with that? Then go for it. I don't worry about it handicapping you later, although some may have a different attitude. Like your debut has to be with the big publisher, but not, I've never published with a big four. I'd love,
Yeah.
I'll see what that experience is like. But so far, Capstone's been
For
like
sure.
really good to me. So I'm just kind of following my flow again. It's all about following what's happening.
Yes. No, I love that because I feel like, yeah, I know a lot of people who are like, nope, I'm not gonna publish this thing with this publisher, or like this is the wrong work or whatever, which that's great. That's great. How, you know what you want and you have laid out your career. That's amazing. I don't I don't work that way. I don't have a lot of like forward thinking in terms of like, how things are gonna go, or like where to sub what, or whatever. So I'm yeah, I'm in the same boat, kind of like, well, you really like this thing that I wrote and you understand the vision, and I would love to have this thing out in the world. So yeah, let's do this. So yeah. Anyways, it's time for this week's book reviews. Josh is finally getting around to reviewing Jerrold Connors' Jim, his biography of James Marshall. Jerrold proves with this book that he's close enough to his subject that he can very skillfully render this creator into an abstraction that at once elicits Marshall, proves Jerrold is a capable storyteller, and bucks what we think of as the standard must-have picture book story structure. As with Josh's other recent review, Kafka and the Doll, it doesn't need to or seek to be any kind of comprehensive overview of Marshall's life, but it evokes him in a way that honors him and keeps him alive and vibrant. Also, have you seen Jerrold's art? He's a gift to the world. And my review for this week is Little Boo by friend of the pod, Maddie Frost. Not only is this book super cute and creatively creepy around every quarter, for real, after you go through once, go back through just to look for all the creepy details, but this book also has a whole lot of heart. For anyone who feels like their sibling is a little too much sometimes, this book is for you. Come for the Halloween vibes and stay for the heartwarming friendship. A must-have for not just the holiday season, but every day of the year. Don't forget to get your own reviews and library requests in. It's the #1 way to help an author's sales. And if you want to support the pod, make sure to check out our Linktree at linktree/verseshow to give a community shout out, buy merch, become a Patreon, or just say hello. And now, back to our show.
The thing that I was going to ask earlier, I don't know. It's not germane to this portion of the conversation, but I'm going to see if I can work it all together. As we're talking about agreeing to or being open to making deals with smaller presses, one thing that comes to mind is it's not something that we talk about really on the podcast very much. And I'm curious if either of you or anybody else really has conscious conversations about this, or if this is just an agent and editor concern. But BookScan is something that's come up a little bit, and I don't know a ton about it. But it seems.
Sorry.
Throwing coffee mugs around.
I'm sorry. I'm moving all of my beverages. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I wonder the degree to which that influences any decision making on anybody's part.
Like how legitimate the press is.
I don't know what I mean. BookScan, understanding that BookScan and probably other things are tools by which editors and publishers can analyze the numbers behind sales and how successful a person is, and there's a tension or a dissonance between going with the press that's right for your house, but then also focusing on, the pure sales aspect and only making deals that are going to show up well when you go and sub other things. It's more like a resume or CV approach to publishing, where you want to have a splash and not worry about other smaller things. So there's not really a question there.
Well, I totally get where you're coming from, and that's like a strategy, okay? And that hasn't been really my strategy, but it is a strategy, a very viable strategy. Maybe it's a smarter strategy. Maybe I went through it backwards. I don't know. But for me, it boils down to this great blog post that Erin Murphy wrote. and her topic was, and she reps some really incredible authors and illustrators, and her topic was, what is success? How do you define success? Is success being on the New York Times bestseller list? Well, good luck if that's, I'm not saying it won't ever happen, but that's a really tall bar to want to hit. Is it selling a lot
Yeah.
of books? Is it getting really good trade reviews? Is it winning awards? Like, what is success for you? And maybe you need to be fluid with your definition of success, because you're not going to hit all of them with each book. It's just impossible. So Miranda also taught me, like, each book is a different beast. So, like, I'll give you an example. When Deep Deep Down came out, I got zero attention from any trade reviews. I got no trade reviews, like zero. Kirkus, nobody paid attention to my book. Junior Library Guild, no, so nothing. So I was going into it feeling already defeated, but somehow the book started selling slowly. And then all of a sudden it got the orange banner. I was like, does this even mean anything? But then I noticed the traction started. So, okay, fine. I didn't get XYZ, but I'm selling well. So,
Yeah.
so what is success? You know what I mean? So you don't know what's going to happen when you're writing the book. Okay. And that can't be your goal. Like, oh, I want to win an award with this book. It's like you just, again, write what you want to write. And then the book ended up winning the Crystal Kite, which I was like astounded by, because again, it got like no attention. But
Yeah.
somehow my peers gave it attention instead of whoever else is judging these competitions. And that can't be the barometer from which you measure how good your book is. Because, I'm very critical of my work. I don't like probably 90% of what I write. But deep, deep down, I love that book. Hopefully, I'm still going to like it in 5 years, because, when I give readings at school presentations, sometimes I'm reading the book, I'm like, oh, I should have edited that. And, we're so hard on ourselves as writers. But I'm getting to
Totally.
the point where I'm actually starting to like what I'm writing. It took 55 revisions to get there, but it's like that's success to me. Like writing a book that you love and it being well received by children. Okay, fine, it didn't get XYZ. So again, we have to kind of distill our notion of what success is to kind of manage our expectations. Otherwise, we're just going to become depressed and probably leave the business within a year. I mean,
Right.
let's.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
a good response, a good reflection, and consistent with the notion of surrendering to the
That's the
whims of
word
the
of the
industry.
day.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I changed the title of the episode at the top to "Surrender" to Lydia. How long did that take? So let's go into that with Deep Deep Down, because I think that's an interesting case study. I mean, how long did that take for that to catch?
Well, I wrote it in 2019. It got published in 2023. And within a year, I noticed for the first time that my book was doing well. And because of that, my publisher sent me all expenses paid to Ontario, to the OLA, Ontario Library Association, to like sign books and stuff. And then I got to go to the
Awesome.
Smithsonian University,
Ooh,
museum, in Washington. And I got to
Wow.
present my book at World Ocean Day. And then I did
My
Open Book
God.
Foundation. I have never, like, I'm in Canada, I'm no man's land, I'm a single mom. In my head, I'm thinking, I'm never going to get to go to all these NCTEs and all these things that all these Americans get to go to. It's too difficult. I'm a single mom. But I got these two gifts. And that to me that's success. Like, I was like, okay, now I know this book. There's something about this book. I attribute it not only, I'm not saying my book's so great. It's because I happen to write about a topic that children love. And I did not do that on purpose. All kids love the deep sea. So as soon as I walk into the classroom and I tell them my book's about the Mariana Trench, I get at least 5 people obsessed with the trench spewing out facts to me. So I got lucky. Does that happen with every book? No, it doesn't. I don't always pick topics that are trendy or popular. It's just this one happened to be trendy and popular. So like I said, all the ingredients were there, so magic happened. But you can't then expect that magic to happen consistently.
or in the same way, even a second time. I think it's an interesting thing, just connecting my own reflections on the things that you have published as a CV or as a resume. That's a different measure of success, to your exact point. I mean, okay, big four, big whatever number haven't been published there, but look at these other line items that demonstrate that people are deeply valuing the things that I'm writing. Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's
if I
more,
can share one struggle that I had just for a moment. I struggled a lot with writing across genres because I felt like, I'm in the STEAM team group, and I know a lot of like Melissa Stewart and Jennifer Swanson. They only write science, and they are good at what they do. And then I was like, oh no, but I am writing science, but I want to write fiction. I want to write funny. I want to write comics. Is this diluting? Is this going to be? Am I going to be like a, jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing? And I was fearing that. And Miranda said, just do what you want. Don't think about it. Don't think about how you want to brand yourself. Do what you want. So here I am doing what I want. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I'm writing what I want to write. So that's all I can say.
I love that from another author. Excuse me, my gosh. From another or from myself as a fellow author that also likes to just write what I want to write. Yeah, I feel like I got really lucky with my agent Sharon. That is just, yeah, she's just down for whatever. I'm like, okay, I've got this, novel in verse. I'm doing a middle grade. I want to sell this graphic novel. She's like, okay, let's figure out, how to do that.
See, that's a good relationship.
Yeah, it's been really good. I got lucky, like you said. But can we talk about Up High? Because I was reading it right before we got on to sort of like familiarize myself, and it's just, I love, like, it's so well written anyways, like, beyond anything else, but I love how you sort of put the reader like in the rocket ship. Like that's very cool. That's a very like smart thing to do. And you talked already about, figuring out the right structure. So yeah, so tell us everything about how the idea came to you and like how you got that structure, because it works so well.
It does work well, and I'll be brutally honest. So I had done a lot of nonfiction work for hire books, and so taking the leap from the educational market to the trade market is very difficult. And sometimes when you write a lot of work for hire, you almost shoot yourself in the foot. I hate that expression, but I'm just going to use it, because you're writing in a way that is not for the trade market. You're writing more on an academic scale. And so time and time again, the responses were, well, this seems like an educational book, but this seems too academic. Don't put a glossary in, all this stuff. And then I lucked out with Capstone. They gave me a chance. So making that leap was really difficult. But in ways to distinguish the book was exactly that. Not just spew out interesting facts about the Mariana Trench or what's in our atmosphere, but to put the reader to structure it like an adventure, where you're like, hey, let's go to the deepest part of the ocean. Let's go up into space. Where does space start and our atmosphere end? Lock yourself into the spacecraft and find out. Look out the window. So putting the reader into that position creates, and that's something that took me years to figure out, like how to make it engaging instead of just saying interesting facts. Because nonfiction can sound like an encyclopedia at the end of the day. This fact and then this fact. And then no matter how engaging the facts are, if you don't have something, the layers, you're not going to be able to sell that on the trade market. And I'm still learning, right? It's not like I've written something that is really universal yet. I'll get there. I'm still learning. But the trick is think like a kid. What does a kid think is interesting? And place them in the story so that there's an entryway for them to enter the story.
Yeah, it was, you did a great job with this because it's super engaging, because I was reading through and just being like, oh, wow, like, yeah, I'm in it, like I'm like in that rocket. And then
and the way
you hit, like, it was really smart, sort of putting that fact in there about Mount Everest, because that is sort of, the world's highest peak. And so, okay, cool. So you get there, but then what? Like, what happens after you pass? Yes. So I feel like that was a really good sort of grounding tool for a kid too, because lots of kids know about Everest, and it's like, wait, you can go beyond Everest. I feel like that's a good, because you can't always just, like 26,000 feet, like they don't know what that means, but Everest and then the death zone, and like talking about it in those terms is like, okay, got it. Like now I'm like in it. Yeah.
And they might think there's nothing up there, but in writing this book, I learned a whole bunch of stuff. I didn't know about sprites. I had no idea what a sprite was until I wrote this book. And I was like, oh my God, that's pretty amazing. Like it's almost like magic, but it's scientific. And that's the beauty of, science and art converging, because I'm an artist and a scientist all at once, which at first I thought was impossible. But now that I'm getting older, I'm like, hey, no, the two worlds do coexist.
Yeah.
Not to, diverge too far, but that's almost exactly the thesis of Dancing Through Space, right?
Yeah, that's how I got there, because I was subbing that book with my first agent, and I got brutal comments. One of the comments was, well, there's really nothing exciting about this book. I was
For
like,
Dancing Through
okay,
Space.
okay. But I
Oh,
didn't have my hook yet. I didn't have the dancing in the book. I was just a straight up biography of Mae Jemison, and it was maybe slightly boring looking back on it. So it took me 5 years to develop the hook. How did I develop the hook is through research. And I kept coming back to the point of, oh my God, it's so cool that she's this engineer and doctor and she did all these things, but she's a dancer. How can I mix that into the book? That's ridiculous. They're two different worlds. And then finally I realized that's the hook. And so that book took 10 years to materialize. 10 years.
It's so funny because it's so carefully and intentionally built into the core of that book, the tension between those two aspects, that it reads as though you did it from the very beginning, that was the thesis. Because I mean, that's what being in space is, right? It's a form of dancing based in scientific principles. So yeah, well done.
I love that.
Yeah, well,
Thank you for
good
that.
on you for sticking with it.
I struggled with
yeah.
that one. That was one of the books that I thought, well, this is going to go in the garbage can. And then when I met with Miranda, I had already subbed it to a bunch of little publishers. So she was like, I don't know if I want to touch this one. And it's about a
Yeah.
Black protagonist. So then there's that.
Yeah.
I had a lot of obstacles to this book. And somehow it made it through because it was not about the experience of being Black. It was about the intersection of art and science, and that is what my whole life is about. So that, like, I felt a passion about that, and hopefully kids can understand that and read that and be like, oh, I could do more than one thing. Sometimes society teaches you choose a career, that's your career, and I'm not saying that shouldn't be the case. If you want one thing, go for it. But if your passion pulls you in different directions, you might want to follow those two and see where they lead.
Did it come up with any editors that was an obstacle or like an issue, that because you're white and you wrote about a Black protagonist, was that a problem? And if it was, like, what did you and Miranda do to sort of like rework the pitch or like make it, like recenter it in a way that was like, no, that's not, like, yes, the protagonist is Black and I'm white, but like that's not actually what it's about. It's about this like intersection.
Well, the editor who acquired it from, my God, I'm forgetting the name now.
Albert Whitman.
Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. It's early in the morning here that I'll give myself a pass on that. But he really understood it. Albert Whitman, there we go. So he got it and he said, I have no problem with this because I understand the crust of what you're saying is your experience. Now, I don't know how other people reacted. I have not gotten any backlash. I was sure I was going to get all kinds of backlash. I remember writing Miranda a panicked email. Oh my God, what's going to happen? I'm going to get hate mail.
Right, right.
But I can say this. I've gone through this experience, great, but I might not want, I think I've made a firm decision that I will never write a biography again about someone who I haven't interviewed personally, or if they're deceased, interviewed someone from their family or someone who knew them. So that is something I don't want to do again because there are probably some slight holes in the book. I'm just being honest because I didn't get a chance to speak with her as hard as I tried. I read her autobiography, listened to interviews. I did the best I could, but really talking to your main character is kind of essential. So that's something that I learned is where my boundary is, and I'm not going to do that again, but I'm really proud of the book and I'm happy I published it. I have no regrets.
Did you work with any secondary sources or anyone close to her?
I really tried. I'm telling you, I reached out to people who flew to space with her. I reached out to her original dance company. Like I put my tentacles everywhere and she's a very busy woman. She does a lot. She does a lot actually to encourage young girls to study STEM. So she goes and she has her own, she goes and gives presentations across the world basically. So she's a very busy woman. So she probably doesn't even know my book exists. So, but that's okay. But looking back at my other books, like Deep Deep Down, I interviewed 6 people. Up High, I interviewed 4 people. Like, for example, I interviewed Alan Eustace, who jumped from space. So you can read about that in a book. Yeah, he jumped from space from this, height. But you'll never understand what it's like to jump from space until you speak to the person who did it. And so I asked him a bunch of questions that kids would want to know. What the heck is it like to jump from space? And were you afraid? And I can't believe he said he wasn't afraid. And he's just a computer programmer, right? It's not like he's some big daredevil. He's a computer programmer who just, did this an ordinary man who did an extraordinary thing. And that to me those are the kinds of stories I want to bring to kids. Hey, you could do this too. I'm not suggesting you jump from space. It is a very dangerous thing, but he did it and he lived to tell the tale.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, with Up High, did you have any issues subbing that one or any like obstacles that you had to work through?
Well, we subbed exclusively to Capstone because it was written as sort of a companion book to Deep Deep Down. And we said to ourselves, if they don't take it, we'll change the formatting a bit so it won't be so obviously a companion book and still market it more widely. But luckily Allison accepted it from Capstone, and it's not to say that they accept everything I write. It has to be right, and it has to be right for their list in that
Yeah.
time. Like if they have so many space books, or you know what I mean? Like I've been told that before. Oh, we love your book, but we have too many space books at the moment. So it's really again timing, you know?
But
What?
that's it. Well,
Go ahead.
sorry, that's an interesting case. And I was going to ask this if you didn't bring it up. There are obviously too many parallels between the titles of your two capstone titles for that to be
Yeah.
a coincidence.
No.
And it's fortunate that it worked out. And I think about my experiences going to the library or to the bookstore with my kids. What you see then is two titles by the same author that have similar bends, and so it's a natural 2-book deal for parents. They kind of know what they're going to get, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and I have to also mention one thing. It was not even my idea to write Up High. It was Miranda's. So after the success of Deep Deep Down, she said to me one day, Lydia, why don't you write this book? And again, she is a wizard, a certified wizard. So if Miranda Paul tells you to write something, write it because she knows. And so she said the idea, and I said, yeah, that's a really good idea. But I didn't write it until a couple years later or a year later when I really felt the pull. Again, it's all about gut. I was working on other things at the time. And then I felt like, oh my God, I need to write this yesterday. And I just like immersed myself and was doing interview after interview. And I really got into it. I usually write 4 or 5 books at the same time, but I was really all about that one. And because I knew the structure already, it was easier to write. I didn't go through 55 revisions. I went through, I don't know, 30. So it didn't take
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
long.
Only
I mean,
30.
30, just 30.
Yeah. Was it an option? Like, was it part of an option for a second book, or was it a 2-book deal?
No,
Or
it was not a
neither?
2-book deal. They didn't really know me, so they're not going to offer a 2-book deal right off the bat. I didn't present it as such because we didn't think of that idea at the time. It was based on the
Yeah.
success of that book. It seemed like a natural follow-up. And,
Yeah.
at first I was like, is there enough to write about in our atmosphere? And then I researched it and I was like, yes, there is. And
Heck yes,
it's
there
something
is.
we take for granted. Every day we're breathing in our atmosphere. Without our atmosphere, we would perish. Planets without atmospheres, there's no life, or even if they have atmospheres, it's not always conducive to life. Kids take it for granted. It's invisible. We don't, there's nothing up there, but actually there's a lot. And I'd like to remind kids not to take it for granted and also to sustain our atmosphere. So that's something I talk a lot about in presentations.
Yeah. How do you do your presentations? Like, what do you like for like younger kids, right? Like, how do you go in and like hook them?
Okay,
And
so I've been doing presentations out to children for about 17 years because before becoming a writer, I was a
cool.
puppeteer. And so I would go
What?
in.
My God, that's amazing.
Well, there's more. Before becoming a puppeteer, I was a jeweler.
Oh my
We
I
God.
waited
was
50
a
minutes
designer
to get
for
to
10 years.
this.
I
Turned
know.
puppetry, and I toured the world. I went to China when my baby was 9 months old. And I remember breastfeeding her and then shooting her off to this Chinese stranger, and then going on stage and performing my puppet show, and
Gosh,
like
Lydia.
hearing my baby crying in the background. It was a whole thing. So yeah, I've been around the block. What was your question again? Sorry.
Just
I don't
no,
know. Who
like
cares? We want to talk about puppets
I
now.
know. Let's talk about puppeteering. No, just like it was school visit based. Like
Yeah.
just like
Does it
what
have
does that look like? But also like a puppeteering now. That's my question. So
I'll get to the puppeteering because I really want to answer the
okay,
school visits because of the 17
okay,
years I finally figured out a formula that works. It took 17 years to figure this out. You cannot just go into a classroom and just talk about your book. You know, First of all, COVID really helped me because it made me do a lot. A lot of my presentations were virtual for the year after COVID, and so I learned all about PowerPoint and doing really cool segues. And I'm a PowerPoint master and Google Slides. So all of a sudden, my presentation went from talking to visual. That was game changer number one. So if you're going into your presentation with just holding your book, no, you need to go in with a slideshow with cool slides, cool GIFs, cool videos, cool pictures that are going to engage your kids. Number one. Number two trick that really works for every single book. I always engage the children by asking questions. I make like a mini quiz. It's like a game. Can you get the answer right? They love it. So they just don't want to be told information. They want to be asked to speak, to talk about what they know. That's the biggest thing I learned about kids is that they're really smart. We don't give them enough credit. They know a lot and they just want to talk about what they know about. Of course, they'll hear about your book too, but they also want to talk. And so
Yeah,
I always
right.
put like a top 5 quiz questions. Can you answer these? And, you know, it'll be stuff that pertains to my book, of course, and that gets them every time. And slap in a couple of cool videos and gifts. You're golden.
Yeah,
What
amazing.
what
Amazing.
Pokemon would survive in the stratosphere or something if it's my
Yeah,
kids?
totally.
Yeah, and the puppetry was, I think, when I realized I wanted to work with kids. I learned, oh my God, I'm not a performer because I get really nervous. So I would almost feel like I was going to die before going on stage, and I couldn't sustain that. I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm not a performer. I need to be behind the camera. I need to be the creator. But I love working with kids. So that experience taught me how much I love children.
Yeah, yeah.
How? And I'm sorry. Maybe we were flabbergasted when you said this, but how did you get into that? Because my question was going to be, related to what you had said. I thought with deep down that I would never have these opportunities. I'm in the middle of nowhere in Canada, and I'm a single mom, and we have now come to find out that you have this deep experience of reaching audiences. How did you get to that point?
Well, I studied English literature and philosophy. Okay, first I studied science, got a degree in science. I was supposed to be the other engineer of the family, but then I was like, no. So my brother became the engineer. So that went there. And I said to myself, I don't want to study science. So I went to university and got a degree in English literature. And then I was like, what am I going to do with this degree? And when I graduated, I started designing jewelry just because I have a creative spirit. And I actually did really well. I was making jewelry for all these big fashion shows. I was in all these big magazines, but it didn't satisfy me. And then I fell in love and got married. And the man I married was like, hey, you're really good at like carving. You'd be good as a puppeteer. And he was a puppeteer. So I started a business with him. And so that I don't regret any of that because it was a great experience. And then we got divorced. And then through that, I lost my whole family unit, but I also lost my job. So I lost my profession. I was jobless because I couldn't continue that. So it was a really dark time. I'm not gonna lie, it was a dark time, and I was trying to figure out my new family dynamic, and then also figure out what am I gonna do with my life. And then I came back to writing, and then I was like, wait a minute, that's what I like to do. I like to write, and I love working with kids. Hey, Kidlit! And so I literally picked up the books off my daughter's shelf. She was really young, and I was always reading to her. And I was looking up, I didn't know about SCBWI, and I was looking up publishers and Googling them. Like that is literally how I started. It would have been smarter to become a member of SCBWI and save myself a lot of work. But I literally was picking up books and just sending out ridiculous query letters that made no sense, that were probably terrible and horrible and cringeworthy.
It's
That's
an
how I
important part
started.
of the process.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
It was intense. It was intense. But you know what? I don't, I got my beautiful daughter and everything is a learning experience. You can't have regrets in life. I firmly believe that. Everything happens for a reason. And I'm now where I'm meant to be.
And if you think about it, being a picture book author is a form of puppetry. You're just,
Exactly.
you're puppeting things that don't exist yet, right? So,
Oh,
Yeah.
you built towards
talent.
it. Yeah, exactly.
So Lydia, so we're up to the hour, but I want to just circle back really quick to shout out your graphic novel coming up because that's your next book that's going to be released. Is that right?
Yes.
Or do you have something in between?
No, in July, it's Groucho, of course, Ode to Garfield, Groucho the Grouchy Groundhog, and it's really just, it's very character driven, is what I can say. Sometimes the premise of the story comes first, but often with me, whenever it comes to fiction, which I write less often than nonfiction, but it is character driven for me because the character comes first and then the premise comes second. So it's all about Groucho and how ridiculously hilarious he was without trying. The thing is, he's not trying to be funny. He just wants everyone to leave him alone. He's just like, get away from me. I just want to eat pancakes. Stop bothering me with all your nonsense. Everything he does is funny. So it's outside of me in a way. To me, he's real. And so it was easy to write the book. And then I got a 2-book deal with that. So then I've got the second one coming out next year. So hopefully, pray to the gods, the literary gods, that children like it and can understand it. Because they also like Garfield. Like
Yeah.
There's a modernized Garfield out there.
That's amazing. I'm so excited for it. I remember seeing the announcement and I was like, oh my God, I'm like, Lydia does it all. That's incredible. Yeah, I was really stoked for you. So I can't wait for it to come out and to get it for my kid because he loves that kind of stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Was there any question about it being a 2-book deal? Not about it being a 2-book deal, but, any question for you about continuing that story?
That's a great question because, of course, every author wants to query and say, hey, there's another idea right up along the alley. It's a 2-book deal. So what I was told was you never put your first foot forward saying that. If you get in, if they express interest in the first book, then you say, hey, what about a second book? And so that's how we did it. We didn't go in, we're 2-3 book deal. No, this is the idea. But this character can be marketable. So once there was interest, hey, how about a 2-book deal? Because I think, especially with graphic novels, not so much with picture books and also with chapter books, they do tend to be in series. And so it makes sense if kids fall in love with a character, that there'll be a second. And then after that, we'll see if the sales are good. And I get so nervous thinking about sales. But again, Miranda says, don't focus on that. Don't stress about that. Just keep writing.
It's out of our control.
Right. It is. And to be clear, you're an author-only graphic novel, right?
Yes,
and you didn't illustrate.
It's impossible to sub as author-only. Let me tell you, it is hard to get your foot in the door, and the only way I was able to do it was to convince Tara. Well, she fell in love with Groucho, and she, out of the goodness of her heart, made samples for nothing. I ended up buying presents for her kids after because I was so grateful. But she added her own goodness, made the samples with no money up front, and then we just subbed those. But I suggest if you are an author only to get in, and you have to be ready for the possibility that the publisher might say, we love these illustrations, we don't like the story, or vice versa. We like the story, but we want a different illustrator. So you got to be prepared.
Suddenly, Tara has a 2-book deal for a story that doesn't exist.
Sitting crying in the corner. But it was my idea.
Totally. Oh my God. Yeah, no, that is hard. People always talk about what an uphill battle that is as an author only trying to do graphic novels. So,
but can I just say to anyone listening right now, if you have what you feel is a really good idea and you feel passion for it, go for it.
Yeah. Totally. Because you never know. You just never know what's going to happen.
And hey, it can happen. 2 out of the 3 of us have author-only graphic novel deals, right?
There you go.
Which is not me.
Well,
it's true.
You're next.
True. Yeah, you're next,
I don't want to write graphic novels. Just give me a picture book.
Well, Lydia, thank you so much for coming on. This has been so nice because you and I have chatted before, but not just one-on-one and so candidly this. And it's just been really enjoyable getting to know more about your story and just chat with you and have you on the show. So thank you for coming on.
And
thank you guys for the opportunity.